My name is Alara, and for 20 years I was a ghost in my own life. The end came not with a bang, but with the slow grinding whir of a ventilator and the hollow ache of my own body giving out. I had poured every last ounce of myself into raising my 2 sons, only to see the light in their eyes dim, replaced by a resentment I couldn't understand. My husband, Kalen, had been my jailer, his infidelity a 15-year-old open secret, and the 1,000 yuan he tossed me each month was the paltry price of my confinement. When I opened my eyes again, the sterile white of the hospital was gone. I was standing in the living room of the first home Kalen and I had bought together, the air thick with the scent of his cheap cologne and the acrid tang of betrayal. A sharp pain throbbed on my forehead. My fingers came away stained with blood. Memory crashed over me like a wave. This was the day. The day I found the receipt for a diamond necklace that was never mine. The day our shouting match ended with his shove, the sickening crack of my skull against the glass coffee table, and the darkness that followed. In my previous life, I had woken up insistent on divorce, only to be worn down by the chorus of his relatives. Just bear with it, they'd said. Isn't this how every family is? My own sister, Serafina, had begged me to come home, but my pride had become my prison. I stayed, a stubborn monument to a marriage that had long since rotted, refusing to make way for the other woman, Leora. My stubbornness didn't hurt them, it only killed me. A cold, unfamiliar clarity settled in my mind. This time everything would be different. I stumbled to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. A thin trail of blood marred my brow. It wasn't enough. The injury was real, but the story needed to be undeniable. My eyes, once dull with exhaustion, now held a glint of steely purpose. I looked around, my gaze landing on a heavy glass vase on the vanity. Without a second thought, I picked it up and smashed it against the already wounded spot. Fresh, hot blood welled and spilled down my temple. The pain was sharp and bright, a necessary sacrament for my rebirth. I looked at my reflection, the blood, the wildness in my eyes, and I finally smiled. It was a grim, satisfied thing. With blood still dripping, I ran out of the apartment, letting a panicked whimper escape my lips. I timed it perfectly, bursting out of my door just as Mrs. Albright, the building's most prolific gossip, was shuffling down the hallway. Help! I cried, my voice trembling with awe I didn't know I possessed. Please help me. My husband is going to kill me. Mrs. Albright's eyes widened with a mix of horror and voracious curiosity. What? That bastard, she exclaimed, pulling me into a bony, perfumed hug. Don't you worry, dear. He wouldn't dare. I'm calling the police right now. Tell me everything. I buried my face in her shoulder, careful to let the blood smear on her expensive silk blouse. I can't go on, I sobbed. He's been seeing another woman. He said I should make way for her or he'd kill me. I gave him 2 sons. I served his family for years and he never has a kind word. And now he wants to buy a house for that woman. I felt her body tense with outrage. I had no doubt she would weave my tear-stained, blood-smeared account into an epic tale of martyrdom that would spread through the entire complex before lunch. The police arrived swiftly. A young female officer, her face a mask of professional calm, took one look at me and her jaw tightened. She first took me to a clinic to have the wound dressed. A suspected brainstem injury, the report would later say, and then brought me to the station to give my statement. It wasn't long before Kalen was summoned. He strode into the station lobby, his face a thundercloud of irritation. The moment he saw the officers, it melted into an unctuous, ingratiating smile. Officers, my deepest apologies, he said, bowing slightly. A simple marital quarrel. Nothing serious. So sorry to trouble you. The young female officer who had taken my statement slammed her hand on the desk. You know perfectly well whether this was a quarrel or domestic violence, she snapped. He acted with such impunity. I knew that for marital disputes, mediation was the primary approach. Kalen, after giving his statement, came out bowing and scraping. Yes, I'll definitely change. You're absolutely right to educate me. The moment he turned to face me, his eyes filled with a ferocious promise of later retribution. I didn't give him the chance. In front of everyone, I let my eyes roll back and fainted. The performance secured me a hospital examination and a diagnosis that would make any future quarrel legally perilous for him. We returned home that night in a tense, silent truce. The battlefield was set. I had fired the first very public shot. And I knew with a chilling certainty that the real war was just beginning. The family tribunal was coming, and this time I was ready. The silence in the apartment the next day was a physical presence, thick and heavy with unsaid things. Kaylin had left early, slamming the door, no doubt to seek solace with Leora. I spent the morning not in tears but in quiet, methodical planning. I knew his family. Their arrival was as inevitable as the tide. Around 1 in the afternoon the storm broke. The door flew open without a knock, and in marched Kaylin's sister, Rhiannon, her face a permanent scowl of disapproval. Behind her shuffled his mother, Morwen, the master manipulator who played the saint while her son played the devil. Rhiannon's eyes scanned the room, landing on the bowl of noodles I was calmly eating for lunch. Her lip curled. "Alara, my brother works himself to the bone to earn money. Keeping you at home is just for cooking and cleaning. Now that we're here, there isn't even a bite to eat or a drop of water to drink." In my previous life this gaslighting had worked. For years I had believed that the 3,000 yuan a month Kaylin gave me, which had to cover everything from groceries and utilities to our son's school fees and social obligations, was a grand generosity. I had budgeted with the precision of a field marshal, believing the lie that everything in this household was supported by him. But the truth was, every appliance, every sack of rice, was a discounted item I had scrimped and scrambled for. If I hadn't managed the finances, Kaylin, with his 50 yuan packs of cigarettes, would have been bankrupt. Not a single penny of that money was ever spent on me. I slurped up the last of my noodles with deliberate loudness, then set the bowl down with a sharp clatter. I wiped my mouth slowly. "Auntie," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "You didn't even give me a heads up before coming. What was I supposed to cook for you?" I jutted my chin toward the trash can, where shards of the vase I'd broken still lay. "And I can't even offer you water. Kaylin smashed everything in the house yesterday. This injury on my head. That's from a glass he threw." I saw Morwen's eyes flicker. I pressed my advantage. "Eldest aunt, I only have 3,000 yuan a month to manage this whole household. Last year when you had your second child I gave you 1,200 as a gift. Birthdays, my hospital stays. There were plenty of occasions for you to return the favor. Give it back to me now and I'll go buy groceries for you right away." Rhiannon was so infuriated her face turned a mottled purple. "You..." Before she could continue, Morwen switched to her saintly act, placing a hand on her daughter's arm. "Oh come on. What couple doesn't argue? It was wrong of Kaylin to hit you." Her tone shifted to gentle reproach. "But you shouldn't have called the police either. Family matters shouldn't be aired outside the home." In her previous life she couldn't control the one outside, so she thought I was an easy target. She brainwashed me, saying her in-laws were all on my side and once I endured it, that woman would have nothing. I sneered. Not only did I say it but I also had someone come over to check. On cue a commotion arose in the hallway. Mrs. Albright had arrived with her posse of elderly friends. "This is the one," she announced, pointing a dramatic finger in our direction. "That bastard betrayed her and hit her. Hitting his own wife. I wonder how his mother raised him." Morwen's face instantly hardened, the saintly mask slipping. I laid out the injury assessment photos from the hospital, one after another. The bruises were a shocking lurid purple. "None of you tried to talk me out of it," I declared, my voice ringing with a conviction that startled even me. "I'm definitely getting a divorce. If I don't, I'll sue him." Kaylin, who had likely been listening from the hallway, burst in, his pride finally shattered. "Fine. Let's divorce. I've long wanted out of this marriage." I could see the conflict warring on Morwen's face. She didn't want the divorce. She knew her son was almost 40 with nothing to his name except this marital home, which had drained the family savings. He would never find another fool of a woman as hardworking and uncomplaining as me. It was then that my two sons appeared at the doorstep as if summoned by the tension. Lysander the elder and Orion the younger. Their eyes met mine, and in that electric moment I saw it. A cold, ancient understanding that did not belong to children. I knew. My sons had also been reborn. "I want to live with Grandma," Lysander said, his voice flat. "Me too. I want to go with Dad and Grandma," Orion echoed, not looking at me. The three of us locked eyes. Understanding flashed between us, a silent pact forged in the fires of a shared, miserable past. Morwen, upon seeing her two grandsons seemingly choosing their father's side, beamed with a triumphant joy. "Ah, my two precious grandsons. Grandma hasn't spoiled you for nothing." The public mockery and the defection of her grandsons solidified her decision. Divorce, it must be done. Kaylin looked at me and smiled smugly as if to say, "See? Without me you have nothing. Not even your sons." I almost laughed. He had no idea how expensive it was to raise a child, or that he had just welcomed two vipers into his nest. The house wasn't in my name and I had paid for the renovation. When it came to dividing the assets, I knew what was coming. But this time I was ready for them. The feast was over. The serpents were turning on their master. The divorce proceedings were a grotesque pantomime. As I anticipated, Morwen had the audacity to claim the house was bought by the Vance family. "At most we'll give you 30,000, she said, her voice syrupy with false magnanimity. "Take it or leave it. Or you can just take the furniture." The furniture was nearly a decade old, worn down by the years of my labor. My family was out of town and she was certain I wouldn't be able to haul it away. He was wrong. I was not going to indulge her. I would not leave my dowry for Kaylin and Leora to enjoy. If I was to move out so the other woman could move in, I would leave them a shell. I directly called Mrs. Albright and her friends. "Aunties," I said, my voice heavy with feigned resignation. "I have to leave. Kaylin's new wife is moving in. Please take whatever you fancy from this place. I can't bear to see my things used by her." It was like releasing a flock of well-dressed vultures. They descended with a gleeful energy, carrying off the television, the standing lamp, the good china, and the silk curtains. For the unwanted items, the scratched dining table, the lumpy sofa, I called the scrap collector from the end of the street and had him haul it all away. Kaylin watched, his face turning a deeper shade of green with each piece that left his home. "Elara," he seethed, his voice a low growl. "You have such a vicious heart." I rolled my eyes, a gesture I had never dared in my previous life. "Would leaving my dowry for you and that woman be considered not vicious?" I asked sweetly. The divorce certificate was issued, a flimsy piece of paper that felt like a pardon from a death sentence. Kaylin, freed from the shackles of our marriage, quickly set a wedding date with Leora. On their wedding day, my sister Serafina arrived. She was a force of nature, her anger a righteous storm. Early in the morning, she set off firecrackers on the street in front of their residential building, a gong and drum team she'd hired playing a raucous, celebratory tune. All the neighbors knew Kaylin was getting remarried, so the noise wasn't out of the ordinary. Serafina handed out candy to everyone she met, beaming brighter than the bride. Baffled passers-by asked, "Something happy at home?" "Congratulations." Grinning from ear to ear, she shoved handfuls of candy into their hands. "Yes, something happy. My sister got divorced." With that she pointed upward. She had hung a massive scarlet banner over the main entrance of the building. It read, "Celebrating my sister's divorce from the heartless Kaylin Vance." And in smaller letters below, "Celebrating the ex-husband's second marriage." The newly arrived Leora, however, refused to keep a low profile. She insisted on entering through the main gate of the neighborhood in a garish red bridal sedan chair, only to run headlong into my sister's procession. Seeing her approach, Serafina turned and waved her hand, shouting to the band, "Come on, play the music. Welcome the new bride." Everyone present, thoroughly briefed by the neighborhood aunties, understood the situation perfectly. The onlookers enjoyed the juicy gossip with great relish. The bride was supposed to step out of the sedan chair and cross a fire basin, but Leora refused to show herself. A faint, tearful voice could be heard from inside the sedan. "Go away." Kaylin, the main character of this humiliating spectacle, was subjected to the piercing stares and pointed fingers of the crowd. He was utterly humiliated. From across the street, sitting in the safety of Serafina's car, I took in the entire scene. A lump formed in my throat. I remembered in my previous life before my own wedding Serafina coming to my room, her face full of worry. "Elara, you were such a well-behaved child. Why won't you listen now? You insist on marrying someone from out of town. If you get bullied in the future, your family won't be able to help you." Back then I didn't understand the sorrow in her eyes. I had been so eager to build my own life that I saw her concern as interference. Only now did I realize that blood ties are the hardest bonds to sever. I had left, but the favors I did for the aunties weren't for nothing. They had promised to watch over my two sons, ensuring they weren't bullied and to keep me updated regularly. They were my eyes and ears inside the fortress I had just left. As I watched Kalen's new life begin in a circus of his own making, I knew the first act of my revenge was complete. I had given him a dowry of ashes and a marriage born in scandal. Now it was time to sit back and watch it burn. I had only been home for 2 peaceful days when my aunt, one of my key informants, came to vent to me. "Ilara, that new wife Kalen married, Leora, is really not an easy one," she began, her eyes alight with the thrill of bearing bad news. "She says women are meant to be pampered, not treated like maids. Kalen has to cook for her every day after work. If he gets off late, they eat out." My aunt was standing up for me, but I actually felt quite happy hearing it. Leora was only 21, a high school graduate who had entered the workforce early. Her social circle wasn't high enough to meet any quality men, so when she came across Kalen, a homeowner, she thought he was a great catch. Though not drop-dead gorgeous, her youth and kitschy charm made up for it. Kalen was willing to spoil her and spend money, but he never stopped to consider whether his wallet could handle it. He could manage cooking for a week, but there was no way he could keep it up for a month. Especially when I was at home before, I took care of everything without him lifting a finger. How could he possibly endure such hardship now? Sure enough, it wasn't long before my aunt gleefully told me that Kalen had been going grocery shopping every day lately. He didn't understand that the best produce required early morning competition and the cheapest deals demanded perfect timing to snatch up leftovers. Yet he seemed to be thoroughly enjoying himself, even updating his social media feed with pictures of him and Leora strolling through the supermarket, their cart filled with expensive snacks, premium fruits and small portions of organic vegetables neatly wrapped in cling film. A scene of harmony and warmth with Leora looking blissfully happy. I knew it wouldn't be long before they started arguing. I never expected their first fight to come so soon, overheard by me when Lysander connected his smartwatch to my phone and left it in his backpack, which was in their living room. "How much can you possibly spend just buying groceries?" Kalen's voice was a frustrated snarl. "Isn't 400 yuan a week enough for you? Can't you cut back on snacks? Didn't you eat those snacks too?" Leora shot back, her voice trembling. "You married me. Didn't you promise to treat me well for a lifetime? Now you're even complaining about me having some snacks? If I'd known it would be like this, I should have just married someone my own age." As she spoke, she began to cry. Hearing her tears, Kalen's heart softened and he lowered his voice to comfort her. All right. We've been eating out too much this month. Next month we'll cook at home. You buy the groceries and I'll do the cooking." "Okay." The two of them got back together, all lovey-dovey again. Listening on the phone, I couldn't help but sneer. Two people who had never been weighed down by the daily grind of life, without an ounce of reverence for its cost. Life would teach them a lesson soon enough. Not 2 peaceful days had passed before trouble brewed again. The money Kalen gave to Leora was meant to cover all the household expenses. As a result, she thought that the 2 children only needed to prepare a week's living expenses for their stay at boarding school. But she didn't know that when children returned to school on Sundays, their families would also prepare extra snacks, fruits and milk for them to eat between meals. Naturally, my sons didn't mention it to her. Nor did they bother Kalen with it. They simply lowered their heads in silence when their classmates curiously asked why they didn't bring any snacks. When the other children went home and mentioned that the Vance brothers had no fruits or milk and had to eat others, the parents naturally understood what was going on. The aunties, taking their grandchildren out for a walk, met Kalen and half-jokingly, half-admonishingly said, "Kalen, they say a stepmother means a stepfather. If you can't handle it, maybe you should send the 2 kids to their mother." Kalen got scolded again and was utterly annoyed. He was tired of cooking too. So he gave Leora an earful and completely dumped all the household chores on her. Under the guise of not having enough money, he said he would work more overtime, leaving all the household responsibilities to her. They brainwashed her again. Look at your girlfriends who are still working in factories, living in dormitories or renting places. None of them have it as good as you. Look at you, living in a big house, not having to wake up early, just cooking meals. This family had always been good at the game of slapping and then offering a sweet. They used to do it to me and now they were doing the same to Leora. To put it bluntly, they were just selfish and only cared about themselves. Leora's gilded cage was becoming tarnished, the locks tightening. And from my vantage point, I could see the bars beginning to bend under the weight of their shared delusions. Time flew by and soon it was the new year. In her past life, Leora's obsession was for Kaylin to take her home and have his mother acknowledge her, rather than being without any formal status. Now that she had achieved her wish and become the rightful daughter-in-law of the Vance family, she genuinely considered herself a part of it and thus more readily accepted their brainwashing and emotional manipulation. On New Year's Eve, Kaylin video called me. I took the call and the ones who appeared on the screen were my two sons, their faces etched with a reluctance that was pure artistry. Before I could speak, Morwen's face filled the frame, smiling widely. Oh, these two kids, it's only right to wish their mom a happy new year. Why the reluctance? It's all my fault for spoiling them. She turned her saccharine gaze to me. Elara, don't take it to heart. Kaylin also chimed in with feigned seriousness. Exactly. Lysander Orion. Wish your mom a happy new year and I'll give you big red envelopes. Watching the smug expressions of the Vance family on my phone, I couldn't help but beam with joy. My son's acting was really good. The less close they were to me, the more they integrated into the Vance family, the easier it was to turn it upside down. Happy New Year, Lysander muttered before quickly turning his face away. But the Vance family thought it was a face-saving gesture and smiled as they bid me farewell. I heard a background voice say, "Here, two kids, 200 each." I also smiled and said goodbye. Putting down my phone, I met my mother's disapproving look at the dinner table. She pursed her lips. Ungrateful children. All that love wasted on you. I smiled and picked up a piece of meat for her. All right, they'll understand when they grow up. Then I abruptly changed the subject. Is Uncle Lin setting up a factory? Do you want me to go help? Mother was taken aback. How did you know? Of course I knew. In my previous life, my mother had also asked me if I wanted to earn some extra money. The pay wasn't low. Calculated monthly, it was even higher than Kaylin's salary. But Kaylin hadn't agreed, believing it was better for me to stay home and take care of the household chores. So I had let it go. Little did I know that later, Uncle Lin became prosperous, his factory growing larger. The employees who had weathered the tough times with him in the early days were all given shares, receiving tens of thousands in dividends every year. The regret of that missed opportunity had festered in me for a lifetime. My friend mentioned it. I lied smoothly. I want to do it, Mom. I want to earn money to support you in your old age. Compared to the unbearable days of my past life, being away from Kaylin, not having to raise children and just focusing on earning money felt absolutely amazing. At the start of the year, I returned to Kaylin's city and began working at Uncle Lin's factory. He teased me, saying, "You work like a starving ghost devouring a meal." I smiled without speaking. He was right. If I had been able to secure this job and have my own income in my previous life, I wouldn't have faced the hardships that followed. Now that I had regained what was lost, I naturally cherished it all the more. Meanwhile, the unraveling of Kaylin's household continued. Time flew by and the children reached their third year of junior high. This year Morwen fell ill. In my previous life, it was at this juncture that Kaylin and I began living separately. Now it was Leora's turn to endure. Nearly a year had passed and she had long been worn down by life, transformed from a carefree young woman who only needed to enjoy others' support into a resentful wife. Money that barely sufficed with careful budgeting, an infuriating stepson who acted innocent, and a husband who shirked all responsibilities the moment he came home. This was not the married life she had envisioned. Now that her mother-in-law was ill, no matter how unwilling she was, she had to attend to her bedside. For two people who already disliked each other, being forced to share the same space naturally led to even more conflicts. At this point, Morwen began to recall my kindness and sent Kaylin to invite me to take care of her for a few days. I was shocked by this family's shamelessness, yet still smiled and agreed. After all, we were once family. It's only right that I help in times of need. A year apart, with good food, drink and less stress, I had grown rosy-cheeked and visibly healthier. A far cry from how he remembered me. Kaylin looked at me with an entirely different expression. "Elara," he said, his voice soft. "I'm actually starting to regret this now." I smiled as I saw him out, then quickly grabbed disinfectant wipes to scrub my hands where he had touched them over and over. This guy was jinxed when it came to wives. Anyone who ended up with him was doomed to bad luck. When I arrived at the hospital with a thermal lunchbox, Morwen was practically more delighted to see me than her own daughter. "Oh my Elara, come here. Come sit down." As I laid out the prepared stew and nutritious meals, the other patients in the room were green with envy. "Oh my, is this your daughter? Indeed, one's own daughter is always dearer. She looks much better than that daughter-in-law you brought the other day." I smiled without saying a word, while Morwen averted her gaze, looking awkward. That afternoon in the hospital room, she spent the whole time complaining to me about how Leora didn't meet her expectations in every way. "She's young," I said placatingly. "In a couple of years she'll know everything. People are just plain ungrateful. Only after losing something and having a comparison do they remember how good things were before. But at their core they're utterly selfish." The Vance family was all the same. Leora enjoyed 2 peaceful days before Lysander told her I was at the hospital. She exploded instantly. My son messaged me, urging me to leave quickly. I retreated and hid at a distance, watching as Leora stormed into the ward furiously, followed by the loud bang of the insulated food container being knocked over. "I've served your Vance family all these years and now you regret it? You think Alara's better? Let me tell you, no way." The room erupted again with the sound of things being smashed. That same day I received a text from Kaylin. "Would you be willing to remarry me? If only for the sake of the child." I read the message, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. The unraveling was complete. The trap was set, and he was walking right into it. "Remarry?" I texted back. "We will, but not now." Kaylin's mother was so humiliated at the hospital she had to transfer, costing yet another sum of money. Leora couldn't possibly go to take care of her, and to avoid suspicion I certainly wouldn't go again. At this point, only her 2 eldest grandsons could take turns staying with her after school. They casually mentioned that school required extra tutoring. How could she possibly disagree? The Vance family's money was now controlled by Leora, who refused to comply and flatly rejected the expenses for the tutors. In Kaylin's eyes she showed no respect to his parents above and mistreated his children below, completely eroding his feelings for her. To force Leora into a divorce, he stopped giving her living expenses and frequently beat and scolded her. I calculated the time. It was about time to go find her. In a quiet cafe, Leora sat across from me, looking completely different from the vibrant girl I'd seen over a year ago. Her hair was tied into a lank, low ponytail with stray strands falling at her temples. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her gaze was dull as if she had aged 10 years overnight. Noticing the hostility in her eyes, I smiled gently. "Actually, we're the same," I began. "Both victims deceived by Kaylin Vance. You've realized it by now, haven't you? What he says and what he does are entirely different things." She looked down, her fingers tightening around her cup. "Don't think I'm here to show off," I continued. "Just look at the Vance family. Do you really think I have any lingering affection for that mess? I truly had no choice. Both my sons are tied to the Vances. You're only 22. If you turn back now, your life is still yours to live. You thought you were marrying for love, but look how that turned out. If you get pregnant, your life will be even harder." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Whether you stay or leave, the Vance family's property will be split 3 ways. How much do you think your child would really get? Throwing away your whole life for this? It's just not worth it." In her previous life she had gotten pregnant around this time. If she gave birth, it would mean competition for my son's inheritance. I needed her to see the light. Leora figured it out. She took the initiative to file for divorce. She came into the marriage with nothing, so naturally she left with nothing. She took the child she was carrying, a fact she confirmed to me with a tearful nod, and demanded 30,000 in emotional damages from Kaylin. I nodded. That's the price. That was the price for a woman abandoned by Kaylin Vance. As a woman myself, seeing her pale and fragile appearance, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. Wasting her youth for this family and damaging her own health. It was truly not worth it. After their divorce, Kaylin immediately proposed remarriage. I refused, only agreeing to return to the family but not to remarry him. "You need to show sincerity," I told him. He temporarily agreed. Day after day he took charge of grocery shopping, cooking and household chores. I focused on working hard and taking good care of our 2 sons. In this life, I now had the means to afford the tutoring classes my sons couldn't attend before. Even if they refused, I insisted they go. What I didn't have in my past life I would make up for doubly in this one. When spending money on my sons, I never asked Kalen for a single cent. Whether his money went to groceries or daily expenses, I never interfered. In fact, I sometimes even spent my own money to stock the fridge with good things. Now he was suddenly eager to hand over his finances for me to manage. I still refused. Now remarriage and financial control were like a piece of meat dangling in front of him. He would only run forward if he wanted to eat it. Once obtained, he would start slacking off. Human nature's cheap. And Kalen Vance was outrageously so. Since her last illness, Morwen's health had been getting worse. She spent half of every month lying in bed. I knew she wouldn't live much longer. I took care of her by her bedside even more attentively than Kalen. And she kept hoping every day that we would remarry soon. "Mom, your health is the most important thing," I told her one day, feigning deep concern. "Let's go to the hospital for a checkup." The examination revealed mid to late stage lung cancer. The doctor explained that chemotherapy could cost hundreds of thousands and might not even cure it, while conservative treatment would only give her this year. I ran up and down inquiring about commercial insurance, but they clearly stated they didn't accept those already diagnosed. I made sure all the neighbors saw my efforts. One of them, Mrs. Finch, saw me and asked in confusion, "Elara, that family treated you like that. Why are you still coming back to jump into the fire pit? Why can't you think clearly?" I just smiled without answering. How could they possibly realize that the foolish woman before them, who was wholeheartedly devoted to the in-laws who had hurt her, was actually planning her final perfect revenge? Kalen was moved. At the dinner table, his face was full of remorse. "Elara, I was too foolish before and couldn't see that you were the only one who truly cared for me. From now on, let's live happily together as a family of 4. Okay." As he spoke with deep emotion, his eyes actually welled with tears. I watched that crocodile tear and exchanged a glance with our 2 sons. We all knew he wasn't truly remorseful. He was just afraid. Afraid that we might abandon him now. Afraid that I, who could make money, was living well on my own. But both my son and I were people who had lived through hell once before, demons clawing our way back from the abyss. How could we possibly soften our hearts because of his few hypocritical words? The kind are bullied, the tame are ridden. Morwen passed away as expected. And under the weight of his grief and fear, Kalen finally wore me down. We went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and got our marriage certificate. The prodigal wife had returned. And she had brought hell back with her. The night we remarried, Kalen held me and cried bitter, drunken tears, confessing his mistakes into my unresponsive shoulder. I endured his hypocritical embrace, my mind clear and cold. "Kalen," I whispered, my voice soft with feigned fear. "I was so scared when Mom passed away. It was so sudden." I felt him stiffen. "After going through so much, we finally have a stable little home. If I suddenly fall seriously ill and it's incurable, that's one thing. But what I fear most is not having the money for treatment." I pulled back slightly, looking into his bleary eyes. Should we buy some insurance? Just to be safe." He found this reasoning quite sound. My fear seemed genuine, and the idea of financial security appealed to his selfish nature. He readily agreed. That weekend we went to the insurance company. I had done my research. I guided him toward a high-coverage life insurance policy, the premiums of which would be a manageable stretch for his salary. The agent explained the terms and Kalen nodded along, his mind still clouded by grief and his desire to please me. Watching him finally pick up the pen and sign his name on the contract, a profound, almost spiritual calm settled over me. The weight that had been in my heart for 2 lifetimes was completely lifted at last. My signature was already on the line as the sole, irrevocable beneficiary. From that moment on, all that was left was to quietly await that day's arrival. According to my son's account from our previous life, as their university's opening day approached, Kalen, to save on travel expenses, had chosen to take a bus to register for them. That bus was involved in a chain reaction collision on a mountain road, plummeted off a cliff, and there were no survivors. In this life, with the monthly fortune I spent on hiring top-tier private tutors, Lysander's academic performance had improved by leaps and bounds. He was admitted to a prestigious university far to the south. It was a triumph, making up for the regrets of our previous life. As the date approached, I put my plan into motion. "I've booked our tickets," I announced brightly one evening. "I'm taking the boys down a week early to get them settled. It's a beautiful city, we can make a family trip of it." Kalen grunted, not looking up from his phone. A trip? Sounds expensive. Just put them on the bus. I smiled. Oh, don't be such a bore, Kalen. Our son's only wish after getting into a prestigious university, and you dare to refuse. I adopted a teasing, commanding tone. I've bought your ticket too. It's the fastest train available. Sleep on it tonight and you'll arrive tomorrow. I've already paid for it. If I don't see you tomorrow, you're in big trouble, I'm telling you. He complained about the cost, about taking time off work, but the combination of my insistence, the implication that I was spending my own money, and the lure of a family trip that required little effort from him eventually wore him down. The promise of a reunion, of playing the proud father for a few days, was the final hook. The next day my sons and I stood on the platform of the gleaming high-speed rail station, watching our train arrive. It was safe, modern, and would get us to our destination in a few hours. Kalen's train, the slow, outdated overnight sleeper he had insisted was good enough, was leaving from a different station on a different, far more dangerous mountain route. We boarded our train and found our seats. The atmosphere was tense. We didn't speak. We just waited. The next morning we arrived safely in the southern city. We checked into a modest hotel near the university, the three of us sharing a room. We gathered in front of the television, the local news channel playing softly in the background. We were a portrait of a family on the cusp of a new beginning, but our eyes were fixed on the screen, waiting for the end. Then we saw it. A news bulletin, a reporter standing in front of a chaotic scene of emergency vehicles and a twisted guardrail. The graphic at the bottom of the screen read, "Fatal crash on mountain highway, no survivors expected." The details were sparse, but the route number and the type of bus matched perfectly. The mother and her two sons looked at each other. There were no tears of grief. Instead, a wave of cathartic, unburdening relief washed over us. We wept, embracing each other, our tears not of sorrow but of release. We were wiping away 20 years of pain, of servitude, of being overlooked and trampled upon. I pulled back and looked out the window of our hotel room. The sky, which had been overcast for days, had cleared, stretching into a brilliant, endless blue without a single cloud. The storm was finally over. After Kalen's death, the process of claiming the insurance compensation was clean and tidy. The policy was straightforward, the cause of death unambiguous. The insurance company cut a substantial check without a fuss, the money a cold, numerical representation of a life of misery and its calculated end. It wasn't until the official list of victims was released in the news that Rhiannon, Kalen's sister, learned the truth. She immediately stormed into what was now my house, her face contorted with rage and greed. "This is my brother's house," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. You drove him to his death and now you think you can steal his property? Get out. Take your brats and get out." Her voice was so loud that neighbors from across the hall and upstairs came out to see what was happening. They formed a small, murmuring crowd in the hallway. After hearing her tirade, a young woman I barely knew, a new neighbor, rolled her eyes. "Miss, do you even know the law?" she said, her voice laced with scorn. "They are the legal first heirs. The wife and children. If you try to kick them out, they can sue you for illegally occupying someone else's property, you know." Another voice, Mrs. Albright's, chimed in. "Oh, I remember her. A few years ago when the Vance family divorced Alara and brought in the other woman, wasn't she there too, cheering it on? I always thought this family was no good. The dam broke." The crowd, once merely curious, now turned into a chorus of condemnation, each person adding their own criticism. How shameless to act so disgracefully. Trying to drive someone out when they're raising two of your Vance family's children? Absolutely disgraceful. I stood in the doorway, smiling at Rhiannon without saying a word. With so many people chiming in, she was thoroughly humiliated. Her face, once flushed with anger, now paled with shame. She couldn't hold her head up. The fight drained out of her, and she simply plopped down on the ground in the middle of the hallway, wailing at the top of her lungs and throwing a tantrum like a spoiled child. "Why is my life so bitter?" she howled. "My mother worked so hard to raise my brother, and now that she's gone, she left nothing behind. It's all been taken by this poisonous woman. Mom, take me with you." It wasn't until the police arrived, called by a weary neighbor, that the farce finally came to an end. They escorted a sobbing, defeated Rhiannon from the building. I knew this wouldn't be the last of it. To prevent her or any other vulture from the Vance family from circling again, I acted quickly. I sold the apartment, the site of so much pain, at a slightly below market price for a fast cash sale. I took the money from the sale and the insurance payout, and we fled far away to a new city where the name Vance meant nothing. 4 years later, I stood in the audience of a grand university hall, watching Lysander, my firstborn, stride across the stage to receive his diploma from a top-tier institution. He had landed a job at a major corporation, his future bright and unburdened. Orion too was thriving in high school, his path clear and supported. And I? My early investment of sweat and faith in Uncle Lin's factory had secured me substantial annual dividends. I had my own income, my own life, my own peace. We all have a future now, forged in the fires of a painful past but built with our own hands. The ghost of Alara Vance is gone. In her place stands simply Alara, a woman who is finally, completely and gloriously free. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall, an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, "Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing." I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. "Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng?" Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the third day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to Eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I studied jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, Talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall, but there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "It might take some time to find a new direction." Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. "Maybe," Nicole said softly, "you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further." I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. "You mean creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry?" "Exactly," Nicole said excitedly. "Your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect." The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, "I have to confess something." I looked at her in confusion. "I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you," she said candidly. "I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion." Her sincerity moved me. "You're already on that path, and you're doing very well." "Then, may I consult you often?" she asked a little nervously. "Of course, I'd be delighted." On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, "See, I knew you would find a new direction." When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. "Am I really up to the task?" she asked me in the studio. "You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone," I assured her. "That's exactly what I need." In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. George, you look much more spirited lately, Frank remarked at a gathering. It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life. Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating. Nicole's a good girl, Frank said meaningfully. Talented, and she really understands you. I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. I came to apologize to you in person. She stood at the studio door, her voice low, for everything I have done. I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. I know that an apology can't make up for the loss, she continued, but I want you to know that I truly regret it. How is your sister's illness? I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true. Yes, she nodded. My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to. I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me. What do you mean? It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward. I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare, she said at last. I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well. As she left, she handed me a small package. These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them. Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. You forgave her? Nicole was a bit surprised. Not exactly forgiveness. I said thoughtfully, it's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, Numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for Rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. "Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole," she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but..." "But what?" "But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about." Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. "Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months." Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. "This experience has meant so much to me." "I should be thanking you," I said sincerely. "Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed." We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. "My flight is the morning after tomorrow," Nicole finally said. "I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. "Mary, the exhibition was a great success today," I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. "Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted." Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. "Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me." A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, "I've been thinking about something." "What is it?" "If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met." Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. "Perhaps that's the irony of fate," I said softly. "Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings." When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. "Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path." "Luna," I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, "Her skills have improved a lot. She truly has talent." "Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars," I sighed. "Everyone deserves a second chance." That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. "You mean?" "A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration," she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. "Love." I finished her sentence. "No matter what form it takes." Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. "We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration." "Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project." "We have time," she smiled, holding my hand. "We have so much time." In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. "This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future," I whispered softly. "Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life?" Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. "I will." Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said, "Love does not disappear, it merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.